today I want to make some pockets on this page that is out of my new nature journal I'm working on. And I want to use some of the papers that I have just coffee stained with stencils. So I'm liking this design for nature, so I think I want to use this one. And I'm also liking this one, and I'm going to go with this one also. So the pockets, I want to do a stack of, I was going to do 3. Looks like it's going to be a stack of 2. So I'll use this one and this one. And this one fits fairly well on here. It's crooked on my page, so I'll just have to adjust it a little bit. So let's see what we can come up with here. If I have a pocket that is, I usually don't do a lot of measuring when it comes to working in my journal. Usually just do some tearing, but we have a space of 9 inches here. So if I make this pocket 3 inches and then another pocket 3 inches, and that gives me some space up here for whatever tags I would put in. So I want to make this 3 inches tall. So I'm going to tear it somewhere along in here. And let's see if we can even get it torn straight. So that'll make a nice pocket. And then we'll cut off this edge here. Yeah. We could even do them the same. I think there's like about enough of that. No, it wouldn't be quite enough. I still would like to use this one. So let's tear off a 3-inch section of this one also. And do I want the tops? I think I want the tops. So let's start with tearing at the top. And then coming down 3 inches and tearing at the bottom, trying to get it fairly even. It should be something like that. So now we have, let's see, we'll have to straighten this edge up a little bit. It's crooked. We'll come out to about here. We have 2 pockets, just like that. I think they're about even. Let me measure this one again. It looks a little off. No, it's not. Okay, so they're both pretty good. And that won't hide the total page behind it either. It will once it has tags in it, but so let's go around the outside edge. And for this journal, I've been using tea dye for all of my edging. I'll find my little applicator tool that I've been using for the tea dye, which is right here, and ink up around the edges of this. It's kind of a nice effect to go with the coffee staining, I think. I like to start with one color as I go around through my journals for inking up my pages and carrying that all the way through. Probably normally I would have done a dark color like what the coffee is, but it's okay. It'll be fine. So let's cut a thumb hole in each of these, and if we do it together, then we know it will be even on both. And I have a 1 1/4 inch punch, and I'm going in about halfway, and I'm eyeing it up as far as where the center is. And there we have 2 thumb holes. We'll ink those up also. So I have to decide now if I want to layer anything behind these, or if I just want to maybe put something on top of these. If I were to layer behind them, I would have to cut them down, and I'd like to keep the full size. So I think I'm going to leave them the way they are. There's nothing on the back side of this, so I am going to stitch these in place. I am going to run some glue down to hold them in place, and then I'll take them over to the sew machine and stitch them down, and then I will add a little bit of collage on both of them and a couple of tags. So I'll be back. All right, so they're sewn on and they look pretty neat on there. I think I'm going to add a little collage on 2 opposite corners, and I don't want it to be real big because I want to be able to see my stencil design here. I really like this coffee stained paper with the stencils. So I think I want to start with some lace. Maybe we'll just go all the way across the bottom of both of those. I think that would be real pretty on those. I don't know if you can hear the rain on my roof, but goodness, it is just really coming down. And we need it. We have been so dry. I'm in a room that has windows all around me, and I've had them all the way open, and so I had to go over and shut the ones on the wall where the storm is coming from, as I didn't want the rain to be on my printer and on my sewing machine. And so we'll get this lace glued down just like this. I think that enhances our design, doesn't take away from it. Yes, very pretty. Very delicate and pretty. And what shall we do as far as putting some ephemera on it? I have looked around in my stash, and this is what I've come up with. I thought about adding a piece of fabric up here. I had a little piece that was all frayed. Then when I laid it out, I thought, oh, that's all too bland. I needed a little color. So I got a piece of the scrap paper that I've made this page out of, and that added just enough color, I think, to it to make it all work. So I'm going to glue this all down, and I'm going to use some tacky glue here. Keep making sure I keep far enough away from the edge of my fold on my paper here. And then I have this packaging that I have absolutely fallen in love with, and I'm going to put some of that on. Still trying to squeeze a little bit out of that bottle of glue. And then I have this little butterfly. I'll ink up the edges of that and try to get rid of some of the white. There, I think that's enough for the pocket. So to create this coffee stain paper, I made some coffee, and I'm not even sure what the mixture was. I just eye things up. When it looks dark enough to me, then I say, okay, that's good. But I made a 13 by 9 pan mixture of coffee and water and put it in there. And then I took my 8.5 by 11 25-pound sheets of copy paper and run it through them. From there, I would do a sheet, lay it on my cookie tray that I'm going to dry them on, and then I would lay down a stencil on top. And then I'd do another piece of paper, another stencil, and so on until I got as many made as I wanted to. And then I set them aside to dry completely. And after they were dry, you can see the stencil left an awesome design on our papers. So I did up a whole batch of that the other day, and I'm really happy that I did, because I needed it for this journal. Okay, so I think our tags are pretty enough, and our pockets are pretty enough that it's time to do some tags. Now, the other day I also was working on taking gesso and coating all this cardboard. It's boxes from my pantry, and it's packaging boxes where I had purchased something, and I just inked it all up with gesso, so that when I want to make a stencil, I don't have to stop and take the time to ink something up. Or when I want to make a tag, take the time and ink it up. It'll all be this whole pile that I can choose from, whatever I want, to size I want here. Actually, I think I have 2 of these that are the same weight, and I think I'll use those if they fit. There we go. And what these are just advertisements for the instant ink for Hewlett-Packard, and they're just cards. And so I've inked them up, and I'm going to use those in here. Now the print shows through a little bit still, but by the time I collage on it and do with it what I want, we are going to be fine. So we're going to repurpose these. They fit a little snug, but I don't think it's too snug. I think it's probably just right. Take them out and decide what we want to put on them. So I'd like to collage some papers on them. I have some of this paper, and these are just scraps I have left over from other projects. This just happens to be some of Louisa Heinzel's German ledger paper. Put those down. I have my fan on, and the fan tends to blow things around. I have some of this green paper too. It's a handmade paper. Not that I've made, but some that I have had in a stash. I've been trying to use it up. Get all the edges because this leaves such a nice, like a decal edge on it. We could almost use like a whole piece like that on there. That would be kind of pretty. And we do have enough for both of them. Make them matching to some degree. They don't have to be exactly alike, but I'd like them to match somewhat. And that's a little too tall, so we'll take some of that off. And there goes the other paper. I hate to turn the fans down. I have to have the windows closed. Okay, so let's just glue those on. It's really lightweight paper, so we're just going to use a glue stick for this. We'll take up these pieces of ledger paper and ink them up around the edges. And then I have some of this ribbon that my friend sent me. And I think I want to use the beige one. Or do I want to add more green? No, I think I'm going to use the beige. Cut a piece of this and put on there. Let's distort it a little by tearing it, pulling it. Get it out of whack. There we go. We have some pretty good looking texture on there now. Oh, I'm not sure about these, but I'm going to tear them up and we're going to lay them on and take a look. A friend of mine sent me these in some Happy Mail. Her name is Donna, because she thought I might have a use for them. Back when I was doing my Ferns and Friends and my, yeah, it was my Ferns and Friends, I believe. No, it wasn't. It was my she sheds, because I made a she shed for her. So I'm wondering, for nature, of course, that might look pretty nice. And it gets a little more color on there too. We'll do a rabbit and a dove. Yeah, I think I'm liking that. So let's ink up the edges. Let's think about this for a minute and see if there's something else we would like to add. I think our cards need some color on them. The white is bothering me. So I have some stain made up that is made from Tim Holtz re-inker for peeled paint, distress ink. And I'm going to put a little bit of that on here. And as long as we're doing it, we're going to do the back too. Then I want to take a darker green, which would be the forest moss, in my acrylic block, and I'll put some of that on there. And then, do I have a spray bottle for water handy? It's empty, so I'll be back. All right, so I have my block here. I'm going to spritz that with a little water. There we go. And let's hope it's not too dark. Let's just drop it on there like this. You can drop it. You can rub your acrylic block over it like this. You can do both, obviously. That, to me, looks more naturey and woodsy than the white did. So let's take this now and wipe this off. And we'll dry this. All right, so as I was drying this, it has a lot of color pooling up around it. So I'm going to take another piece of one of my pantry boxes, and I'm going to just kind of lift off some of that ink instead of just drying it and wasting it. And there we have some for our new project. Now we'll dry this. All right, so the back sides look okay. I still want to add more color. But the front, the spray that I put on the front, didn't do anything to it. So I'm going to take my forest moss again, and I'm actually just going to go right to it, and then I'll spray it and see if I can get it to run a little bit and see how we think of that. So I'm just rubbing a little bit of my forest moss right on my cards. Missed that. Get that to run a little. Manipulate a little by moving it around, and then we'll dry this also. But before we do that, let's lift a little bit of it off. All right, so that looks pretty good, but let's get some more color on there. Let's choose to do some Rusty Hinge. And again, I want to drop it on. Now this is an oxide ink, so you're going to get a little different reaction from it. It gets some, it's called, it oxidizes, it turns bubbly. I kiss that on each other. Let's try that. Put a little bit of that on the outside of my papers here. They are somewhat damp still because of that handmade paper that's on the front. It really soaked up all that spray that I put on the first time. Go around the outside edges of the front also. Now that we've done that, we're going to take some of our water in our mini mister and spritz the edges just a little. All right, so we have everything colored up quite nicely, I think, at this point. On the back side of these cards, I can still read some of the writing. I can still see this little scan thing here. It's a junk journal. This I don't mind. We are to be using junk to make our cards and tags and different ephemera with. And if it shows, it shows. It is what it is because that's what we're using. So this handmade paper, I'm very happy with the way that it absorbed the different inks. Normally I probably would have put it on after I coated the card, but I wasn't thinking. I was just thinking of getting to work, and I'm happy with how it ended up. We have that. We have our texture. We have our ledger paper. We have our focal point. And I think that makes for a pretty nice looking tag. Decide how I want to lay this out here. Usually like to put all three elements and connect them. So I think I'll go something like that. I don't really want it on the center of my card. We'll do just like that. And then for the other one, we'll do it on the other side. Makes pretty nice journaling cards. So we'll get this all glued down here. So I did a little hitting and missing here with this netting, this ribbon. But I think we've got enough on there to hold it in place, and we can always just add a little more. And then we're putting layers on it too, so that'll also help hold it in place. And again, I'm just using the tacky glue. All right, so I'm happy with the tags, but I'm finding a little issue with getting anything to stick to this ribbon. So to fix that, I'm going to go around the edge of my focal point, which in this case is the hare and the mourning dove. And then that should hold everything together so that it doesn't come off. So as soon as these dry, I am going to stitch this down, and then I'll be back. All right, while I was waiting for these to dry, as you notice, I cleaned up my area a little bit, and I was feeling the need to have some clean paper put down. So I switched that up. I got these dry. I also, for this journal, am adding some copper foil, which is this, as my accent piece to different elements that I'm putting in my journal. And so I just glued a little bit of that down, and then I went with a zigzag stitch all the way around my focal point on that one and on this one. And I'm thinking they look pretty cute. So this will be held in place, and the glue is holding that down. It just took a while for it to decide that it was going to do that. Let's put them in our pockets and see what we think. So we'll slide that right down in there, and we'll leave it so that the mourning dove is looking out the top of our pocket. And then up here, we'll get our hair. Come on, bunny. There we go. Leave it up just a little bit so we see his face. I think that makes a cute double pocket for our page. Now, this is the type of page where in your journal that you can journal on it. Yes, you can. You could still see writing on this, but it's a pretty busy page, and so I like to, on these pages, add an element to them. And this gives journaling room on the back. So if I'm taking away space like this, I like to add some space to make up for it for journaling. So if I would have left this blank, we could have journaled on the whole thing, but we added this interactive element with the pocket and the tag, and we replaced that space with journaling cards, 2 of them for journaling on. So all is not lost, and we've added beauty to our page. Hope you enjoyed this project, and we shall see you again soon. Bye now.